Hi, my name is Cinzia Capola, and I am presenting um, for Group 3. We were assigned to correlational research, and it is myself, again, Cinzia Capola, and Manuel Rivero Jr. So what is correlational research? Correlational research is a type of non-experimental research in which the researcher measures two variables and assesses the statistical relationship or the correlation between them with little or no effort to control extraneous variables. There are many reasons that researchers are interested in statistical relationships. So what are the characteristics of a correlational research study? Well, in quantitative research, there are three major types of research. There's descriptive, experimental, and correlational. So usually the variables are quantifiable. They are not manipulated. And there's usually a sample size of 30 or more participants. So the findings for a correlational research are either a positive correlation, negative correlation, or no correlation at all. A positive correlation is between two variables when an increase in one variable leads to an increase in the other variable. So shorthand would be variable X increases variable Y. A negative correlation is literally the opposite of a positive, and it means if there is an increase in one variable, there's a decrease in the second. So an increase in X would be a decrease in Y. And no correlation would be there's no relation at all. So change in one variable does not necessarily change the second. So X does not change Y. There is no particular connection between the two. So there's a correlation coefficient, which is a numerical representation of the strength and direction of a relationship. So instead of drawing a scattergram of correlation to be expressed numerically, such as a coefficient ranging from -1 to +1, when working with continuous variables, the correlation coefficient to use is Pearson's. So a correlation of 0 would signify no relationship, plus would be positive, minus would be negative. Hence where you get the scale of the -1 to +1. So steps of using correlational research. So the purpose is to identify the cause and effect of an essential phenomena. First, you define the problem. Second, review literatures that exist. Third, select a subject who have measurable variables, especially homogeneous. Fourth, collect data, test questionnaires, interviews, and last is the analysis. There are many different methods for use of correlational research. To test your hypothesis, you analyze the quantitative data and find the correlation either weak, strong, by looking at its numerical coefficient, as we saw on the slide previously. So data collection in correlational research is either naturalistic observation, survey research, or archival data. Naturalistic observation is a type of field research where you gather data about a behavior or phenomenon in its natural environment without intervening. Usually it's an observation where you record, or the researcher records, counts, describes, categorizes the actions of what they are researching in their natural habitat. Archival data is, instead of collecting original data, you also use data that has already been collected for a different purpose, such as official records, polls, or previous studies. So an example of a correlational research study was a study done by Robert Levine and Ara Norazian. They used the naturalistic observation study method to look at the pace of life across various countries. One of their measures involved observing pedestrians in a large city to see how long it took them to walk 60 feet. They found that people in some countries walked reliably faster than other people in some other countries. For example, people in Canada and Sweden covered 60 feet in just under 13 seconds on average, while people in Brazil and Romania took close to 17 seconds. Because of the naturalistic observation that takes place in this complex and even chaotic real world, there are two closely related issues that researchers must deal with before collecting data. First is sampling. When, where, and under what conditions will the observations be made? Who exactly will they observe? So Levine and Norazian, the researchers from this particular study, described their sample as follows. Male and female walking speed over a distance of 60 feet was measured in at least 2 locations in main downtown areas in each city. Measurements were taken during main business hours on clear summer days. All locations were flat, unobstructed, had broad sidewalks, and were sufficiently uncrowded to allow pedestrians to move at potentially maximum speeds. To control the effects of socializing, only pedestrians walking alone were used. Children, individuals with obvious physical handicaps, and window shoppers were not timed. 35 men and 35 women were timed in most cities. So what are the limitations of correlational study? Well, a correlational study is not, it cannot be taken to imply causation. Even if there is a very strong association between two variables, we cannot assume that one causes the other. So for example, if you find a positive correlation between watching violence on TV and violent behavior in children or adolescents, it could be that because both of these are due to a third extraneous variable, like growing up in a violent home or abuse or something else going on. So we can't be 100% sure that the violence on TV is actually causing the violent behavior. And second, the second limitation is correlational research does not allow us to go beyond the data that's given. So suppose it was found that there was an association between time spent on homework and the number of GCSE passes. It would not be legitimate to infer from this that spending 6 hours on homework would be likely to generate 12 GCSE passes. So essentially, the correlation between the data um, is just that correlation between the data. It could not infer further. So that concludes our presentation on correlational research study. Our references are listed on this slide, and thank you for watching.